Hey guys, it's Tony. All right, so as you know, we are talking about growing deeper in our faith. It's not simply going to church or reading the Bible that makes our faith grow. It's actually doing something with and acting on what God has said. And we also need to seek out relationships with people who are positive influences in our lives, because God uses people to grow our faith. This week, we're talking about another way that God helps us grow deeper in our faith, and that is through serving other people. Now, I wanna do something fun. This is gonna be cool. I'm gonna ask a question. You're gonna turn to your neighbor and answer the question. All right, here it is. Question number 1. What does service mean? Okay, go right now. Go. Answer the question. Okay. Numero dos. I think I said that wrong. Number 2. What problems do you see in your community and in the world? Go for it. And number 3, this is an important one. Answer this one. Come on, you got it. How can you serve others? I don't know about you, but for me, serving isn't always easy to do. I mean, serving others, thinking of others' needs before your own, and then acting on them, well, that doesn't always come naturally for us, now does it? And then things get even more complicated when we think about all of the really big problems in the world. I mean, do you know how to fix things like homelessness or bullying or the need for clean water? I mean, I don't, okay? I'm just saying, those are pretty big problems. Well, we all know that there are people who have needs, whether they're halfway around the world or just right down the street. Our problem with serving isn't that we don't know that there are people who have needs. The problem is most of us stop right there. We know someone is in need, and maybe we even feel a little sad about it, but then we move on. Why do we do that? Well, we probably think something like, someone else will help them, or there's nothing I can do, or I don't have the time, the money, or the skills to really do anything to make a difference. And believe me, I totally get it. I've struggled with those same thoughts and questions when it comes to serving others. Those same things have held me back from trying to meet the needs I see in the world around me too. But what if I told you that serving isn't just about the needs of the people you're helping? What if I told you that serving actually has a lot to do with you? It actually has a lot to do with your faith. You see, when you choose to stay uninvolved in meeting the needs of others, you might actually be missing out on something greater that God has in mind for you. You might miss the chance for God to grow and shape your faith in a new and deeper way. And I don't know about you, but that's not something I want to miss. All right, I have an example. I love story time. It's like my favorite time. To give you an example of how serving can change your faith, I want to tell you a story about Jesus. Here we go. All right, it's a story from the book of Matthew, like we talked about, which is one of the 4 books in the Bible that talks about Jesus' time on earth. Matthew, someone who was right there with Jesus and saw it all. I mean, he was like iPhone. He was like close. Well, he wrote down the things he experienced as one of Jesus' closest followers and disciples. Well, today, we're gonna look at one of those experiences. We're gonna peek in. Okay, here we go. This is getting juicy. All right, at the time, Jesus was trying to take a break from all the traveling, speaking, and healing that he'd been doing. He just received some really sad news that his cousin, John the Baptist, had been killed. Crazy stuff, y'all. He did what a lot of us would do when we need a little break. He went somewhere to be alone, except he was Jesus, super popular guy, right? Everyone wanted to be around him all the time. So that didn't work out exactly as planned. Matthew said this, that even though Jesus got on a boat to get some time to himself, the people followed him on foot anyway. I mean, that's commitment, y'all. So annoying too, right? Well, that's at least what I would have thought. But Jesus, well, he had a different response. When Jesus had landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and he healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go into the villages and buy themselves some food." Okay, this I can relate to. It was time to eat, and I love to eat. The disciples were hungry, the crowd was hungry, and they were in the middle of nowhere. The disciples knew there were people around them in need, but instead of asking Jesus how they could help the hungry crowd, they asked Jesus to send the crowd away to fend for themselves. But Jesus had other plans. Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." It's like Jesus said to his disciples, "You know what? You're right. Everyone is getting really hungry. They have a need, and I have an idea. Why don't you come up with some food and feed all of us?" Maybe you felt like God was giving you this type of nudge before. Have you ever had a desire to give money to the homeless man on the sidewalk? Or even seen someone crying at their locker and wished you could help? Or maybe you heard about a family in your community who needed new clothes and wanted to give them some of your own? Have you ever thought, maybe that was a nudge from God? When your heart goes out to someone, when you sense that someone is in need and you feel a nudge to do something to help, that's called compassion. And it's that compassion that Jesus was asking his disciples to draw on to help feed the people in need around them that day. But listen to how the disciples replied. "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. In other words, the disciples said, "Hey, we're not prepared or equipped to meet these people's needs. You've got the wrong guys." I'd probably feel the same way. Can you imagine Jesus asking you to figure out how to feed 5,000 people with just like a tiny bit of food, like maybe white powdered donuts, like 5 of them? They're so good. Okay. It seems impossible, right? The disciples certainly thought so. But then look at what Jesus did next. It's getting juicy. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. The disciples couldn't see how one little plate of food was going to feed thousands of people. They didn't know exactly how to meet the need right in front of them. And even though they may have felt compassion for the people around them, they weren't sure what to do to help them out. But they did know what they could do. This is big. Putting my phone down for this, I suggest you do the same. Here it is. They could trust Jesus. Remember, these were the guys who were walking alongside Jesus all day, every day. They saw him do amazing things all the time. So even though they didn't know what to do, they knew that Jesus did. They trusted that Jesus would do a miracle, something only God could do. They listened to Jesus and they gave what little food they had. And do you know what happened? Something miraculous. Somehow, there was enough food for everyone. That's pretty incredible, right? But do you know what else I think is incredible? I think Jesus says the same exact thing to you and me that he said to the disciples that day. Bring me what you have. He doesn't think you're too young or too inexperienced or too poor or too insignificant to make a difference. He thinks you matter. He can use whatever you have to offer. So bring him what you have. Because like the disciples, he wants to use you to help meet the needs of others. And in the process, he wants to deepen your faith as well. Because God uses service to grow our faith. Here's the question, folks. What do you have to give? Just like the story you just heard today, you have something to offer. There are people who need the specific time, talents, and gifts that you uniquely have. And God is like doing this. He's like nudging you to act on your compassion and use what you have to meet the needs of others around you. All you have to do is give what you have and trust God to do the rest. If you're not sure what this looks like in your life, start simply by answering this question. What do you have to give? Maybe it's a little time to volunteer at a local organization. Maybe it's some extra money to donate to a cause. Maybe it's a friendship to someone at your school who really needs it. Whatever it is, start by identifying just one thing you have to offer. Then think of just one way that you can use that to serve others this week. I promise that whatever you do to use what you have to help others, your life will be impacted as well. And I know because it happened to me. I've always loved the stage. I'm sure you can tell, all right? Whether it was cheerleading or acting, I did poetry, maybe it was dancing too. I love dancing. But growing up, me being on stage was something for me. I loved to entertain an audience. But my gifts and talents were something that I loved to do, and it became my hobby, my place of to access fun. So after college, I moved to Georgia. I'm originally from Texas, Houston, okay. I got connected with this church, right? And I met a youth pastor named Carlos. Now he taught me that my gifts and talents could be used for something more. So that's when I started in ministry. I mean, it was crazy. I became a youth pastor. I started speaking to and hosting events for students across America. It was crazy. But what's really, really exciting is that through serving students in ministry, it has changed my life and my relationship with God in an incredible way. Remember, God uses service to grow our faith. When we serve others, not only are we helping to meet a need around us, but God uses that as a chance to deepen and shape our faith as well. All right, so you've heard my thoughts, you've heard a great story about Jesus. I have a question that I want to give to you to ask yourself, to think about, to process, to answer. Here's the question. What is one thing I have to give to someone else in need? Answer that, and we'll see you soon. I'm like a burrito. I'm a burrito.